Martin, I think we should start with this story, which is breaking news that apparently the perpetrator has been found over in the US of these various letter bomb attacks.
Well, we'll have to wait and see whether he is the perpetrator or whether this is, all smoke and mirrors.
It's amazing that none of these letter bombs actually went off, isn't it? It's quite lucky.
Well, it is, but it looks to me as if they were designed not to go off. I mean, people who were making letter bombs generally make them to go off, and these ones that didn't have batteries in, some of them, I've seen the photographs, didn't go through the mail because they haven't been franked. The stamps haven't been franked. So we've got to suspect here, as many on the right do suspect in the US, that this is some kind of put-up job by the deep state. But, of course, that's possible because the deep state in the US is very powerful and they do all sorts of nasty stuff. And this is relatively minor compared to the stuff they usually do.
So, I mean, you're saying that some of these bombs were possibly not actually viable?
Well, then none of them were viable because none of them have exploded, have they? And in actual fact, it looks as if...
Surely that's because the FBI have come along and made sure...
we don't know, is all I will say. The suspicion that somebody in the intelligence services has set this up, or some political force has done it in order to try and influence the midterm elections, is quite possible. But the question is who? And what's the motivation? What are they trying to do? So, for example, it could be that they're trying to show Trump's opponents as being persecuted, and therefore, they've leaped forward and said, "Oh, Trump's to blame for this because he's encouraged this kind of thing." But of course, it could well be people who want Trump to succeed who've done this because it makes people who say these silly things look bad. If it turns out that in actual fact it was a pro-Democrat person, for example, who'd sent these things to try and make Trump look bad. And we're in the world of psychological war games, and nothing should be taken for granted.
Well, there's been an arrest in Florida. Apparently, these were posted or came from originally from Miami, Florida.
Well, if they've got somebody and they put them on trial and put it in front of a jury, then we will decide, possibly, what has happened here. But we don't know for sure. We're not sure who's behind it or what the political motivation is. It's clearly a political motivation. The question is what. And, of course, I'd like to remind people of the anthrax attacks following the 9/11 incident, if I can call it that, in which 6 people died. That was definitely carried out from inside the US because all the anthrax came from Fort Detrick in Maryland, which is the US equivalent of Portland Down. But nobody has ever been convicted of that, even though it's absolutely clear that somebody inside the US intelligence structure must have been responsible for killing those people. I think that's pertinent to bring that up at this moment when we're all supposed to be running around with our hair on fire about this.
Well, the Wall Street Journal, which is owned by the Murdochs, is saying that it's Cesar Sayok, 56 years old, he's in custody. 2 packages were found on Friday addressed to Senator Cory Booker and to James Clapper. So he's the guy who's been arrested, and not all that much known about him. Online court records show he was arrested in Miami back in 2002 for another bomb threat. He received 1 year probation for the incident, according to the records. He has 2 other criminal cases in the Miami courts, the records show.
Well, it may well be that the police have just gone to find him because he's already got a record of sending bombs, and it may be that he's nothing to do with it at all. I'm just saying.
Well, let's have a listen anyway to the BBC breaking news coverage on 5 Live of this incident, where they went directly to the CNN headquarters in New York when these bomb threats were first heard of. And we hear from their reporter who starts this piece from 5 Live by the name of Jennifer Smith.
The US Secret Service has said that a suspected explosive device was sent to Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama. A US official told the Associated Press that a functional explosive device was found at the Clintons' home. Officials do say that they proactively detonated the device and determined that it did in fact contain explosive powder and had the components of a bomb. And they were discovered by technicians who screen the mail that gets sent to these former US officials like the Clintons and the Obamas. But this is also 2 days after a bomb was found at the home of a liberal philanthropist and financier George Soros in the suburbs of New York City. This was confirmed to be a pipe bomb, which was discovered in a mailbox at his house, and he has become a frequent target for criticism by right-wing groups due to his support for liberal causes.
OK, all right, that's what we know as far as we can go at the moment. Jennifer, thank you. Jennifer Smith reporting there. We can speak, though, to Phil Unger, who runs the Flute Centre of New York, which is right opposite the Time Warner Centre. Phil, thank you very much for speaking to us. What can you see? What's been going on?
Well, I'm looking at my window right now. By the way, the Time Warner Center is not actually downtown. It's Midtown.
Right.
And there's, I'd say, a few hundred people outside the building. We watched the building be evacuated and people poured out. But it seems to be more of a non-event than anything else. There's a few camera crews out interviewing some people on the sidewalk. But people seem to be going about their business as they do in New York. There's not much that shocks us here anymore. And so it seems to be a day as any other day in New York City.
Well, as thankfully nobody has been injured in this series of bomb attacks, whatever it is, we will have to wait to see who the police claim has done it and what their motivation is. Because it could be that there are people who hate Trump's critics, or it could be that this guy is a Trumpist and he's it could be that he's a Trumpist and he's attacking Trump's critics, or it could turn out that he's a liberal Democrat and he's trying to make Trump look bad by sending bombs to people, which especially bombs that don't go off, to liberal politicians and figures, so that Trump then has to defend his own rhetoric. Well, look, I mean, but I definitely think there's some game going on for sure.
So when Jennifer Smith talks about the Secret Service telling her and Associated Press, I mean, the Secret Service, is that the CIA? Who exactly is
Well,
this?
exactly. So in other words, we're just being told somebody told me this, and
someone told Associated Press.
Yeah,
I'm just reading out what it says.
And in actual fact, the Secret Service are potentially suspects in a case like this, which is why, of course, you need an independent civilian police force to look into it.
Why are they suspects?
Because they are trying to influence the political debate in the US.
Do they ever give things which might be potentially bombs to people in order to set them up?
They've done this loads of times with loads of people in the US. People have been approached and said, psst, 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 do you want to blow something up? Psst, 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 do you want to blow something up? And then people eventually, often people with drug, alcohol or mental health issues, are then eventually persuaded to blow something up.
I think it was maybe Ryan Gallagher at The Intercept that put a brilliant article a few years ago saying almost every terrorist attack in the United States had actually been set up by the FBI.
I think it's 100%, Tony, since 9/11.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'll put a link up 100%. To that on our show page.
All supposed terrorist attacks in the US.
I'll just thisweek.org.uk.
US intelligence services.
So, also, they're saying it's a functional explosive device, and that they actually did try detonating it, and it had some explosive powder in it. So what does that tell us?
Well, it tells us what they're telling us they want us to hear.
Bomb components in it too.
Yes, okay, but if you're going
none of that actually means that it's a bomb, does it?
No, it doesn't, and it may well be that we're being told a load of fibs anyway. Don't presume that just because it's an official source that it means it's true information. Doesn't necessarily mean that at all.
What about this Soros angle?
Well, Soros is quite unpopular on the right wing in the US because he supports liberal causes that they don't like. So therefore, it could be that a right winger has sent him a bomb. But it could also be the FBI, CIA, deep state pro-Democrats who are sending him a bomb to make him look as if he's a victim so that Trump looks bad. So in other words, you can't presume that you know what's happening when some incident like this occurs. So what about you've got to ask the question, cui bono, who benefits?
Right, what about the strategy of tension? Because this sort of thing, it does smack to me. I'm looking at the UK Times map here. We've got 8 different apparent bomb attacks, but none of them actually went off. Now this gets everyone panicking, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, the strategy
What's the point?
The strategy of tension, as you know, is the name for what went on in Italy during the 1970s and 1980s, where it was definitely NATO intelligence services, and they weren't sending fake bombs, they were planting real bombs, like at Bologna railway station that killed 86 people. And the idea that the intelligence services might be orchestrating this in order to create fear and so on, and so that they can have more power. Don't forget that all of the anthrax letters, which killed 6 people in the end, were sent to liberal Democrats who might have voted against the Patriot Act, so-called, which then brought in all of this kind of repressive legislation. And because they've been sent these anthrax...
We've got the midterm elections coming up.
It's clearly related to the midterm elections. Whoever's done it, it's either a lone wolf who either conservative or liberal, who's acting on their own, or it's the deep state. One or the other, or possibly both. Because, of course, if the deep state are operating, they will then dump it on somebody. This guy may be the guy they're going to dump it on. Do you follow me? Doesn't mean he's done it. It just means he's the one who's going to go to court for it.